Now, it's been said that there are 2 days that happen in every week that are completely free from worry. You get 2 days each week that are free from fear, free from apprehension, free from anxiety. Does anybody know what those 2 days are? No, not Saturday and Sunday. The first day, although Saturday and Sunday can be fun, but if you're doing what I'm doing, Saturday sometimes has a little apprehension in it, depending on what you've been scheduled to come up here and do the next Sunday. No, the 2 days are actually one of them. The first one is yesterday. Because yesterday has passed forever beyond our control. And all the money in the world can't bring it back yesterday. Yesterday, with all of its mistakes, its cares, its faults, its blunders, its successes, nothing can bring back yesterday. Now, the other day that we shouldn't worry about is tomorrow. With all of its possible adversities, its burdens, its potential successes, all of the growth that you could experience, its promise, and the chance of maybe poor performance and failure. See, tomorrow is beyond our immediate control. The sun is going to rise on tomorrow, whether the sun rises with the sun shining and not a cloud in the sky, or if the sun rises with a cloudy sky and a little bit of a gray overcast. It's rising whether you like it or not. So the good news is that the only day that you have to worry about is today. Today's the only thing that has to worry you. And it's probably good that that's the only thing we have to focus on, because I don't know about you, but every time I open the CNN app on this thing, I find a new reason to worry. I mean, let's look. Oh, look, just while I was sitting here, I got a text. It vibrates when something for me to worry about happens. So let's just see what we've got going on right now. Oh, look, we've got U.S. airstrikes targeting ISIS. Respiratory virus sickening children. North Korea is going to judge Americans. We could watch a hammerhead shark chase after some swimmers. All of this right here in my pocket. And every time this thing buzzes to tell me about a new thing going on, I look at it and then I have to ask myself, can I really say that God is all good? Can I really look at what's happening here and go, wow, God, it really is all good, isn't it? You know what? I've got good news for you, too. We're not the only ones that have struggled with this question. This question hasn't just come up for us in this generation. This isn't new. This was something that's happened throughout time, over and over again. In fact, this was something that the Apostle Paul wrote about in one of his letters to the Romans. You see, some of the earliest Christian writings that we have are actually the letters of Paul. And the way this would work is the different churches that had set themselves up in Corinth and in Rome and just kind of all over would send letters to all of the fathers of the church, all of the figureheads, and say, what do we do about this? How do we handle this situation? And then Paul would write back and give them their answer. And it's in Romans, in the 12th chapter, that he tells the Romans, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds. Now, in Unity, we like to tell ourselves that when we see mind like that, it's talking about God. It's the renewal of God within us, the Christ mind within us. And Paul's not saying to ignore the world. Paul's not saying to reject the world, to not pay attention. He's simply saying don't conform to it. Don't let it direct who you are. Instead, let your mind renew who you are. Let the mind of God renew within you who you are. You see, ultimately, that's what it's all about. And that's what I like to think that Paul's saying right here. That reminds me, when was the last time you saw somebody in a Unity church wave a Bible around like this? It feels odd doing it, but it was kind of fun to get to. But but it's about our transformation. That's what this life is about. Now, at times, the very nature of that transformation can be elusive. It can be hard for us to see that we're being transformed. In fact, there are times where it seems like God's not working in our life at all, like we're not being transformed in the least. And even with that solid theological basis, I'm going to do it again, that solid theological basis that we have from Paul, sometimes it seems a little shaky that we're being transformed. We know that God works in us and through us to inspire us, that God guides and inspires us in all moments. But a lot of times we can kind of feel at a loss for what that transformed life actually looks like. So what is transformation? I mean, really, what is transformation? You see, spiritual transformation is not about attaining some sort of level of spiritual understanding. It's not about us all getting to this certain spiritual plateau and then we've reached our spiritual transformation and we're done. Spiritual transformation is also not about trying to emulate and be and do every little thing exactly as Jesus did. Jesus is a wonderful way shower for us all. We like to look at him as our brother and elder way shower. But I hate to tell you this, the world has already had a Jesus Christ. We don't need another Jesus Christ. What we need is for each one of us to take our own individual transformations to become the Christ of our being. We don't need another Jesus Christ. What this world needs is Larry Christ. It needs Kathy Christ, Cindy Christ. And that's our work, to transform ourselves so that we become the Christ of our being. We're not trying to turn into something else. We're trying to become the fullness of what we are. And that transformation is happening right here, right now, inside each and every one of you. It's happening in this moment, when God within you, whether you like it or not. Now, it does help to know, because there are times when that phone vibrates and lets you know that something's happened, or when you come into a challenging situation where you have to wonder, am I really being transformed? So it helps to know some things to look for, to remind yourself that, yes, I am being transformed by God. Yes, God is working in and through me in this moment. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to actually give you 4 keys to that transformation. 4 signposts of God's work in your life. Now, I want you to be very clear in understanding that these are keys, these are signposts, these are markers. These are not the 4 steps for you to go out and do to attain your transformation. That transformation is happening in you right now, whether you like it or not. Instead, what these are ways for you to check in to see how God is working within you. When you have those moments where you go, I don't know if God's really working in me today. This is a way for you to look back and ask and say, well, yes, no, because I can see these changes. You see, the goal is for each of us to express our own Christ nature. And once our hearts are fully set on that Christ nature, our lives reflect that nature in how we live. So these things, these 4 keys, they're indications of the transformation that it's already happened within you, and they're indications of the transformation that's continuing to happen in each and every moment of your life. And I think it's important that we make the distinction between a key and a step, because they lead us in 2 very different ways. See, this isn't so much about what you can do for God, what you can do to realize more of God in your life, to utilize the universal laws of giving and receiving. That's not so much what this is about. This is about God doing something within you, and you cooperating with God to bring about the fullness of what you are. And so there's 4 keys that you can look back on and say, okay, have I been transformed? And that first key is exactly the key that Paul mentioned. It's the renewal of your mind, the renewal of your thinking. Now, we know and teach in unity that our thoughts have power, and that we can create the situation that we walk into by how we think and feel about that situation. That's not the renewal of thinking that I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a physical change in the way that you think. And I'll give you an example from my own life. When I was in college, I signed up for a fair number of credit cards. You know that thing, you're walking down the campus and they tell you, well, we'll give you a free t-shirt if you sign up for this credit card. And I thought, hey, free t-shirt. And so I had all of these credit cards, and I got myself into a fair amount of debt. It got to the point where, the creditors would start calling, wanting to know, where's my money? And so every time that phone would ring, my stomach would start spinning in knots, because I knew what was on the other end of that line, and I also knew I didn't have what they needed. Now, things had happened. I moved through life. I got out of all of that debt. I'm debt-free now. But how I knew that I had been transformed was how my thinking changed. Now that phone rings, and it's no longer the fear that comes about in me, because I've moved past that point in my life. I've transformed that part of my life. My thinking has been renewed. So when you're wondering, how did God move in my life? How have I been transformed? Is God really working in my life? You can always ask yourself, is there anything that I was afraid of that no longer puts me into fear? What did I used to have anxiety about that no longer keeps me up till 2 o'clock in the morning worrying? These are the things that are evidence of God transforming you in your life. And the fun thing about this is the more you pay attention to it, the more it continues to grow exponentially. So the more you begin to realize that God is transforming my life on a daily basis, the more those transformations begin happening over and over again and in greater ways. Now, another key to let you know that you've been transformed is community. And I'm not talking about the community that you live in. I live in a wonderful community. We have lots of wonderful neighbors around us. I see them at Halloween and the 4th of July. I wave when I drive by. And that's not the kind of community I'm talking about. I'm talking about this community right here. It's the community of people that support you in growing into your greatness, that are willing to stretch you and help work with you and love you and help you grow through your challenges. They'll provide you opportunities to learn and grow. And you've got a wonderful opportunity coming up here in just about a month when this Fall Faith series kicks off. And you can kind of tell if you've changed, if you've transformed your community. At least I know I have. I look back at where I was 10 years ago, and I'm not part of the same community I was. And I would imagine if I tried to go back, I wouldn't fit in, because I've transformed, I've changed. And so this is a wonderful place to really take you deeper. But you know what? We have fun here in this community too. And you heard earlier, you heard Bob talking about our Fall Faith concert coming up. That Terry Wilder will be here on October 5th at 7 o'clock to do a Fall Faith concert. So there's the opportunities in your communities, in your transformational community, to come together, to celebrate, to have fun. And then there's the opportunities to be stretched and grown and to learn more. Now, if you don't know yet, this is the 40th anniversary of Unity Church of Overland Park. We started 40 years ago, and we're going to be celebrating that anniversary throughout a majority of this Fall Faith experience. And so the other piece we're going to be doing is we're going to be giving away tickets to see Terry Wilder throughout the services for the next 4 weeks. I don't know when it's going to happen. I know when it'll happen today, but we don't know when over the next 4 weeks. But at some point, we'll be giving away tickets to that concert. And so actually what I have right now is I have 2 pairs of tickets, or a set of tickets, 1 pair, 2 tickets, to anyone out here who can tell me 40 years ago where Unity Church of Overland Park had its first meeting. And it's not fair if you no, yeah. Cindy, I would hope you know. Yes, you were there. Is it before you? No, not at the little strip mall. It's at the Roadway Inn. Yeah, it's just right across at Mac. And if you found yourself not quite sure, so here you are, Kimberly. There's 2 tickets to see Terry. And you can buy your tickets today and join in this community. Or you can wait and try and win them over the next 3 weeks. More opportunities will be coming. But if you found yourself not knowing where the church started, that's a question we answer in UCOP and U, and we'll be offering that class on September 22nd. So you can join Jan and Rachel and learn all about the history of this community that's 40 years old this year. So your community is another one of those keys. You can check in with that and see, has God transformed me through the community that I'm involved with? Another key is your perspective. It's the perspective that you have, the perspective that you see in the world around you. You see, it's easy when that little phone vibrates to think, why does God let all of these things happen? You're exactly right, Jana. He doesn't. In fact, I like to, when I'm watching the news and some tragedy happens and some, the evangelistic preacher comes on and starts saying, God did this because we did these things. I like to kind of look at the screen and scream back at him, God doesn't kill people, people kill people. And it's true. God works in us and through us to bring resolution, to bring support, to bring peace. So when our perspective begins to shift, we don't look at these things as horrible things that God allowed to happen. Instead, we look at them as, how can we be the presence of God in this situation? We begin to see God active in everything around us, and we begin to stand for that presence of God in our life. And so as your perspective begins to shift, you can tell that God has transformed your life. And as that perspective shifts, you move into that last key, that last sort of mark of knowing that God is working in and through you, and that's service. Because as you begin to transform your life, as you begin to grow in your understanding of the presence of God within you, you can't help but want to give back. So you want to give back to your community, and you do it from a place of love. This is a service to the world that's about sharing your Christ light with the world, sharing the truth of who and what you are with the world. It's not being in service for recognition. You just give to give. And again, you'll have an opportunity to experience what that's like coming up during this Fall Faith series. But giving just to give becomes a really powerful example of a transformed life. And again, here's the beauty of this. This is happening right now, whether you like it or not. Whether you go out and try to renew the way you think or change your perspective or not, you're being transformed. That's how God works within each and every one of you, each and every one of us. So the four things that can happen, your thoughts begin to change. You notice your community is growing and changing and supporting who you are. You begin to see God, your perspective shifts, and you see God instead of the negative. And you begin to work and live a life of service. See, that's how you transform your life. And remember earlier I said that transformation isn't about becoming something that you're not. It's not about attaining some spiritual level or trying to be like somebody you're not. You see, transformation is not like a cherry tree trying to change itself into an orange tree. It's about the cherry tree becoming what it was meant to be all along, a cherry tree. And as people, we're not trying to become something that we're not. Our ongoing transformation then becomes about living in real time the truth that has been secured since all time. And that is that we are the power and presence of God. And we can be that presence anywhere and everywhere we'd like to be. So I'd like to close with some words from Joel Goldsmith. And this is from Joel's book, The Art of Meditation. And in it, Joel writes, "When we no longer search for the peace that the world can give, but seek only my peace, the gates of consciousness open to admit the spiritual light which becomes the life of our being and our body." So, my friends, that's my prayer for you this day, that each of you find your peace, and that each of you shine your spiritual lights from every depth of your bodies. God bless you all.